Welcome to the lecture on collaborative partnerships. So this lecture is for the Parent Perspectives page, but I wanted to broaden that a little just to talk about collaborative partnerships in general in schools and then narrow it down to talking about how we can support parent participation and some considerations that we might have. The nice thing is that we may have some parents taking this course, and it'll be great to have some input from parents of children with disabilities or who have IEPs, um, get some input from them in terms of what ideas we can take back to our schools and classrooms in terms of increasing parent participation and engagement. One thing that we do know is that collaborative partnerships and community and parent engagement are a key factor in successful schools. So at the very beginning of this course, I shared some resources for the Swift Center and swiftschools.org, and they have a focus on community and collaboration and parent engagement. And the reason it's one of their pillars is because it's really important to student success. I can't say enough about how collaboration is key in terms of making inclusive education and special education in general effective. We really want to use effective communication. We want to have shared problem solving, planning, and finding solutions. One thing that we know about inclusive education is that it doesn't always go smoothly, and sometimes we do have to do some troubleshooting, and it's important to consider that if we have good collaborative relationships, we're going to be able to work through those problems a lot more quickly with a lot more success. And so in collaboration also ensures that students receive a free appropriate public education as is mandated by special education law. So we really want to make sure that we establish partnerships and that we also effectively communicate with others. Many times in inclusive education, we're going to find ourselves in a problem-solving process kind of mode where we may hit a barrier to effective inclusive education, and we need to come up with ways to solutions to these issues. And so the things to think about in terms of effective communication is to use active listening and also depersonalize situations. So sometimes we care about kids very much, and sometimes that can bring out some emotions. And to think about that we really want to go back to what is doing what's best for the student. We also want to find common goals. What are we really reaching for here? What is our shining star? Be able to brainstorm possible solutions, summarize goals, and follow up and monitor progress. This makes me think of Jill's lecture from last week and using some of that parent input in the IEP process. So here are some steps in effective communication. These are derived from Master Perry and Scruggs. They are formerly professors at George Mason University. They are likely Professor Emeriti at George Mason University. And they outline these in one of their books. And I do find them very helpful in thinking about how we collaborate and with parents and families, and also collaborate with our entire team in general. To be using active learning, which means demonstrating both verbal and nonverbal actions, that you are listening to the person who's talking, making sure we avoid negative comments and emphasize a goal. Sometimes as teachers, we may be struggling with a student, or sometimes as parents, we may be frustrated with what's going on, and we want to make sure that we keep it positive and that we emphasize the goal of inclusive education. And we also need to find common goals. We want to make sure that we, again, look at our shining star. What do we really want to achieve here, and stay focused on that. So steps 4 through 6 would be to brainstorm possible solutions. We want to make sure that we suggest solutions, and that we are getting input from all participants, and this certainly includes parents, that we're prioritizing this list of solutions, that we're summarizing, and that we're making sure that we follow up. We want to make sure that parents are all part of this process. So collaborating with parents and families and can be key, and I don't mean to minimize the importance by having this just on one slide. I've actually included some really great articles for you guys in this section, some really accessible articles in terms of increasing parent collaboration. I've also included some links to some parent collaboration websites or parent websites, support websites that focus on materials for parents, such as sample letters that they can use to advocate for their children, and so on and so forth. So be sure to check those out um, in addition to what you find in this lecture. So one of the things that I'm going to talk about here is just making sure that we are sensitive to variability in background and family structure. There are a couple of studies that were done quite a while ago that discussed parents who were from different cultural groups. And the research suggested is that the school professionals didn't always understand where the parents were coming from because they were from a different background, or they didn't understand what the family structure was going on. And so of course we want to be um, thinking about people's need for privacy, but in the same respect, we want to have some understanding of background. Consider always trying to maintain positive communication. So many times with students that might struggle in our classrooms, we often communicate with parents only when there is an issue or when something negative is happening, and we want to make sure that we keep things positive and we move in a positive direction, which means we want to make sure that we focus on those positive aspects, that we communicate those positive things that are going on. I had an idea from a teacher not too long ago that one of her students, she writes something positive on a sticky note and has him stick it in his pocket to bring home every day. So no matter what the day has been like, he has something to bring home that's in a positive nature. Communication logs, such as binders, communication notebooks, are very helpful in terms of communicating about homework and just what happened in school. Many times we will find that parents may be using and teachers may be using communication notebooks, but not as effectively. So consider that not only do you want to communicate about behavior, but you want to communicate about specific curriculum and what was worked on in schools. Some parents do have a lot of time to assist their children at home in terms of working on content. We want to make sure that that communication is there. It makes it a lot easier now with things like Google Classroom and other online applications that allow parents to view what has been done in school. Of course, we want to think about resolving disagreements, always partnering with parent advisory groups. These are going to be groups where you can really learn what parents need and get a sense of how best to collaborate with the parents in your area. And then also help parents and family cope with disability issues. We want to see certainly embrace difference, but there are some struggles that may come along with disability. In terms of possibly, let's say, transportation, affordability of medication, and we always want to be there as a support system. So a couple of other big ideas and to encourage active participation would be make sure that you are establishing a team culture, meaning that parents feel like they are part of the team. Also that we're explaining some of the special education lingo to parents. In special education particularly, we are often using a lot of terms, a lot of acronyms that folks outside the education realm might not be familiar with. Making sure that the meeting environment is comfortable, and making sure that our basic team practices really encourage parent participation. And so I highly encourage you to, although it's required, please read the Encouraging Active Parent Participation in IEPT Meetings article associated with this lecture. And it's going to provide a lot more information on how to encourage active parent participation in IEP meetings.